I grew up in southern New Jersey. Where I grew up was farm country. I grew up on a dirt road. There were cornfields. That area of New Jersey is known for blueberry production. It's where Rutgers pioneered the high bush blueberry. There was a pig farm on my street. I grew up around agriculture. All of that disappeared in the time I was growing up. You know, all the dirt roads were paved, the farms were pushed out. It's all suburban development now. And seeing that landscape change made a really strong impression on me as a child. I went vegetarian when I was 9 out of concerns around animal welfare and our food system, very childlike understanding of our food system. And that move to vegetarianism as I grew up really forced me to understand or explore how food works in our bodies and how our food system works and where it comes from, and went from vegetarianism to veganism as a young adult and in college, and then from there started working on vegetable farms. The first time I ate meat was like local meat from a neighboring farm and dairy, and was really spoiled to have that introduction, and also really lucky. And I wish it's how we could all eat in Vermont. We are lucky to eat that way. I think that combination of growing up in a changing agricultural landscape, or an agricultural landscape that was becoming suburbanized, having a really deep interest in food and the ethics of food and what makes food good. What is good food? Is it what's good for us? Is it what's good for the planet? Is it what is good for the animals and the plants that we're eating? Also, I didn't know a lot of people growing up that were happy in their work. Good work wasn't really modeled for me at a young age. My dad was a hospital administrator and my mom was a school teacher, and they liked their jobs well enough, but they didn't love their jobs. I started spending the summers in Gloucester, Massachusetts as a teenager with an aunt, and that's a working fishing town. It's a really great blue collar town, a lot of working class people that really loved their work. It was where I had my first job working in a restaurant and got to know fishermen and restaurant owners and carpenters and all kinds of people that worked with their hands and their bodies and really loved what they did, and always made time to talk to me about their work and how they felt they were living their good life. And they weren't the people that were making the most money or had the biggest houses, but they loved what they did. They got up every morning and loved what they did and loved who they worked with. And that made a really strong impression on me of combining that desire for what makes good food and what makes a good life. I went to college and was a double major in English and history. I was by no means like chasing the agricultural dream, but I think that those childhood experiences made a really strong impression on me. And I, had a job in New York City working in a criminal justice reform nonprofit, and had applied to graduate programs, and was just like, I just want to try this farming thing. I've always had this urge to try this. And I know if I don't do it before I take out these grad school loans, I'm never going to do it. So I walked down to Union Square and started asking farmers if they would give me a job. Talked to someone that was like, yeah, we actually are looking to hire one more person, got the phone number, called up the farmer, and drove up that weekend for a job interview, quit my job, started working on that farm in May of 2007. And 6 weeks on, I pulled my grad school applications and said, I'm going to try this one more year. And never stopped. I moved to Vermont in 2010, farmed on some rented farmland in Burlington, went through Hurricane Irene on that property, had 7 feet of water, inundate the farm in my second year farming, and started looking for land that I could afford to buy, doing the Union Square farmers market, got, my business plan written, 3 years of numbers behind me, was approved for an ag loan, and found this property. And I bought this property in 2014 and moved the farm here in 2015. It's really spent a lot of late nights studying maps of looking for prime soils. I knew I was giving up my amazing floodplain soils. That's the problem in Vermont that I'm sure everyone's heard about at this point, is all of our best soils are in areas that flood. So after going through 4 floods on that property, I was ready to give up the prime ag soils for, it's called soils of statewide importance, which is what I have here, that are still great ag soils, but not as perfect as a floodplain soil. You have rocks, you have nutrient level is variant, particulate sizes in your soils. It's just slightly more challenging growing conditions, but we don't flood, which was really important to me. Of course, now what we're learning is that it's great if you don't flood, but 10 inches of rain in a week still poses challenges. But I love this piece of land. I feel incredibly lucky to have found it, and to have had the resources and the opportunity to buy it. Vermont does a really good job of working with its young growers and helping them with the business planning side. There's a great mentorship program of 2 years of business planning that helps you prepare for a meeting. If what you want to do is buy land, they'll help you prepare for meeting with lenders. Vermont Farm Viability Program. Yeah. There we go. I did that 2013 and 2014, and learned how to keep books, learned what a 5-year projection document looked like. Again, I was a double major in English and history. I wrote the farm business plan. Great at writing a farm narrative. But yeah, had to learn how to run a business really quickly. And Farm Viability does a great job at helping growers to do that. And I can't recommend that program enough. A lot of the landscape that you see around you is because of programs like that are helping people keep those transitioning dairy farms in open land and in working land. Before COVID happened, I had been doing a farmer's market in New York City for 13 years. I hadn't sold vegetables in Vermont since I stopped doing the Burlington Farmers Market in 2014. I did Union Square Greenmarket on Wednesdays and Saturdays. Sprinter for winter markets when we took smaller loads. And we had a 16-foot Freightliner box truck in the summer and just filled it. And we did Wednesday year round, which is really a chef's market. That's the market that I did while I was really learning how to farm and getting started. So it really influenced a lot of the varieties I choose and how I grow and what I grow. And then we did Saturdays from like June to Thanksgiving as well. So usually when we were taking the box truck, we would leave at midnight. And in the winter, when we were taking the Sprinter van, you could leave at like 1 or 2 a.m. It's an amazing farmer's market. It was a great place to cut my teeth. I just learned so much. That's how I got started farming. I wanted to start a family with my partner, and we had a whole plan of hired greenhouse manager and wash station manager and Wednesday market manager and Saturday market manager, had a great crew in the city working our markets, had a great crew on the farm, drivers, and got pregnant, timed it so that we would have the baby in the winter, gave birth to my first daughter on February 17th, 2020. And then New York City shut down the second week in March, and I didn't know how to sell a vegetable in Vermont. So just started, I was still in bed rest, recovering and learning how to be a parent, and just started calling accounts that I knew and put together the pieces and found accounts to sell to, started a CSA on my farm just because a lot of local people were calling and asking for access to produce, and we were looking for ways to move product. So the opportunity to join Muddy Boots came up when Justin gave me a call and said, we're looking for a new grower to join Muddy Boots. I was ecstatic. So it was a great opportunity to join Muddy Boots. I remember it was probably 12 years ago now, 13, 14 years ago when Muddy Boots started. Reading about it, I had known Justin. We both had a background in New York State agriculture and both moved to Vermont around the same time and got to know each other at the Burlington Farmers Market. And I respect him immensely as a grower. And James is also an amazing grower. What he's producing on small acreage just blows my mind constantly. But getting an opportunity to join them in a CSA, I jumped at it and was so grateful that they had thought of me. And it's now the core of our summer marketing program.